Hello, everyone. This is Reverend Dr. John W. Wilson III bringing you the Sunday School lesson for Sunday, March the 15th. It is titled The Consequence of Injustice. The Consequence of Injustice. Our passage this week, we're still in the book of Habakkuk. We are going to look at the second chapter. We will read and look at verses 6 through 14. And so we will have a great, exciting lesson this week. If you find that this lesson is helpful, I encourage you or would like for you to hit the like button, hit the share button. If you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. I'd like for this to get out to as many people as possible. So thank you very much in advance. So let's talk about Habakkuk. We talked about the background last week. I will give you a summary of it. He is called a minor prophet. Only reason why he's be called a minor prophet is because his material that is written based on what he has said is less than quantity than some of the other prophets who wrote a whole lot more. I had mentioned that it doesn't diminish the quality, it's just that the quantity is less. And the good thing that R.C. Sproul says that whenever God calls someone to prophesy, that person is no minor at all. So he is a major prophet in the eyes of God, and what he says is critical. Now he is preaching somewhere around 620 BC. About 20 years later or so, the Babylonian nation will conquer and destroy and exile Judah, Israel. As we come to this passage, about 100 years before we come here, the Assyrian army or nation has completely obliterated the northern kingdom of Israel. In fact, they are nowhere to be found. And so as we come to this passage here, Assyria is on the decline. The Babylonian nation is rising up. Those two nations will battle. Babylonia will conquer Assyria, and Syria will be no more. So right now, as we are coming to chapter 1, Assyria was still lurking there, and Babylonia was rising. But as we come to chapter 2, it would seem that some time has passed and Assyria is declining. And I said before, the Babylonian nation is rising to power. But the Babylonians become the topic of what is in chapter 2. Now, there's a problem that Habakkuk is struggling with. And we struggle with it too. We struggle with injustice when we see things that are being done to people and it seems as though they're getting away with it. It troubles us. Or when we see over a period of time after time, injustice, murderers getting away with murder, thieves getting away with robbery, conspirators getting away with conspiracies. When we see injustice going on for a very long time, if we who are holy, who are called to be God's people, to be a light in a dark world, we wonder, God, how long will you allow this to go on? How long will you allow sexual immorality? How long will you allow the people to be oppressed and be mistreated? How long will you allow these things to go on? And so that's what Habakkuk is struggling with. He's looking in at Judah, and he sees all kind of injustices going on. He's seeing violent acts committed against others. He's seeing that the law is being broken, being disregarded. He is seeing idolatry. He's seeing immoral sexual practices going on. He's seeing all of these going on. They are not honoring the Lord. They're not respecting God. In fact, they're disrespecting him. They're pretending on the Sabbath to be one way, to be righteous and holy, but the other days of the week, they are running rapid, committing all types of violence and oppression. So the first question he asked, Lord, how long will you allow this to go on? That's his first complaint. And then God answers and says he's going to raise a power, which will be the Babylonian. They will come and they will inflict punishment on Judah. Now, Habakkuk doesn't have problem with Judah being punished. That's what he's asking for in, excuse me, in justice. That's what he's asking for. But the problem that he has, which leads to his second complaint, which is at the end of chapter 1, is, God, why will you use a wicked nation, a nation that is more wicked than Judah, a nation that would seem to be more guilty than Judah? Their crimes are more terrible than what Judah is. Why would you use a nation like that, a more wicked nation, to punish a less wicked nation? So those are two things he's struggling with. One, God, when are you going to do something about Judah internally? Because they're your chosen people. We have a covenant with you. And then when you tell me that you're going to rise up a nation to completely destroy us, to take us out of our land and put us in exile, to humiliate us, to kill us, to harm us, to all do the worst things imaginable to us, why are you using a more wicked nation to punish a less wicked nation, Judah? So he is struggling with that. And so when he concludes at the end of chapter 1, he says, I will take my stand at my watchpost and station myself on the tower and look out to see what you will say to me and what I will answer concerning my complaint. He is saying, God, I'm going to go. I don't know what's going on. I'm confused. I can't figure this out. It doesn't make sense to me. I'm going to go into a watchtower many feet high. And he's going to look out. He's going to literally do this. And he's going to sit in that watchtower and looking and look and wait for you to communicate with him and to answer him. And at the same time, he's going to think about what his possible answer to you may be. And that's what he says. And the issue here is that this is not what God called us to do when things don't go our way, or we are confused about what's going on, or when there's injustice in our lives. He's not calling us to go and isolate ourselves and wait from him. He is calling us really to go about the business of what he has called us to do. So to me, it seems like Habakkuk is pouting a little bit. He's very upset, doesn't know what to do. He said, God, I'll just wait for you to answer me. And then when you answer me, I'll think about what I'm going to say to you, and we'll go back and forth. I'll let you know what my complaint is. And I don't think that's the right thing we need to do. When things are not going our way, we don't want to run away and isolate ourselves. So the Lord says this to him in chapter 2. Lord speaks to him. He says, write the vision. I'm about to tell you something. I want you to make it plain and clear so that even the most ordinary or common person can understand it. So he may run who reads it. So that person may be able to understand, and they'll read about the coming judgment that is coming, and they will understand it in such a way that they need to flee the land and get out of harm's way. He says, this vision will come at my timing. It will come at the appointed time. It will come at the time that I choose. This judgment, this justice that you're looking for, it will come at my time. Don't get discouraged if it doesn't happen as fast as you like. Don't get discouraged if you think that judgment is coming too slow. It will come, but it will come at my appointed time. And when it comes at my appointed time, there will not be any delay. And this is the key verse, or number 4 is the key verse in all of Habakkuk. It really almost in all the Testament. It applies in the Old Testament and the New. It is powerful. He's saying, behold, his soul is puffed up. He's really speaking about Nebuchadnezzar. It said, it is not upright with him. He is not righteous. He's unrighteous on the inside. He is a wrongdoer. He is evil. And he said, behold, his soul is puffed up. I know who he is. I know he is not right, the one who is coming. But what God really says is that don't worry about those questions that you ask me. Because he, in this passage, in this book, he really doesn't answer it directly the way Habakkuk would like. He doesn't give them a answer on how long it's going to take for Judah to be punished, or why is he taking too long? And then he doesn't answer the question is that why is a more wicked nation punishing a less wicked nation called Judah? He doesn't answer that. But this is what he says. He said, in the midst of this, while you're waiting for this to happen, I know what's going on. He says, but the righteous shall live by faith. And that's what we need to know. In times of fear, in times of turmoil, in times of panic and frustration, and all those things, the righteous, God's people, you know what they do? They don't run and isolate themselves. They don't do what the rest of the world does. They don't try to fix the problem themselves. They don't look for worldly ways to fix the issue. What the righteous do is that they shall live by faith. They do what they know what God has called them to do. That's living upright in a unrighteous world. That means representing God when there's evil all around you. That means doing what's right when there's panic and confusion all around. That means holding on to your faith when everybody is fearful and putting their trust in something else. So the righteous live by faith. Now we're going through a coronavirus and people are panicking. They are fearful. But my challenge to you is that the righteous shall live by faith. If you are a child of God, then you know God is in control. You know that he has his hand on everything. And for the child of God, they ought to know there's no reason to be fearful. There is no reason to be panicking. Are we to be concerned? Yes. Are we to do the things that we know that we should be doing? Yes. But we know that this whole thing is in God's hand, and it will come to an end when God says it will end at his appointed time, and it will be without delay. So as Christians, we cannot operate in fear. The righteous shall live by faith, not fear, not worry, and not confusion. And that's what we have to do in the midst of any trouble that we're going on. This is what God tells Habakkuk. Yes, you don't know what's going on. And no, I'm not going to answer your question the way you want to. But what you do is that you live by faith and you trust me to do the rest. And that's what God's message to him. That's his message to us in all situations. That's timeless. I love that passage. I love it. But as we go to chapter 6, this is what God pronounces his judgment on the Babylonians, or a judgment on any evil nation that's doing things that go against his law. See, we have to understand that God is holy. And we Christians, we're very familiar with that term, but that term really expands throughout all people. God's standard for believers and non-believers is to be holy. The advantage that believers have, we have accepted Christ as our Lord and Savior. We have the Holy Spirit living inside us, so we can live a life that strives for what God's holiness is, which is perfect obedience. Now, to the non-believers or the unbelievers, their definition of holiness is something less than something else. In fact, they may not even know what God's holiness is. So therefore, they fall short. But that doesn't excuse them, because God's standard for all people, believers or non-believers, is holiness. And those who don't live a holy life fall into God's judgment. And the issue is they will be judged. Anybody that rejects God, anybody that's not living a holy life, anybody that is an unbeliever, they will fall into God's judgment, whether it's a person or whether it's a nation. That's what will happen. And so what God is saying here is that this judgment I'm gonna give you is falling on a nation that you call wicked, more wicked than you. But my judgment is coming against them, and it will be fast, it'll be quick, it will be without delay. And he says, let me lay it out to you. Let me tell you what it's going to look like. Let me paint a picture for you of how bad it is going to be for that wicked nation, because that wicked nation gets punished for unholy living, but it also gets punished for attacking and oppressing my people. So you get a double whammy, and it's going to be pretty bad. Number 6, shall not all these take up to taunt against them with scoffing and riddles for him, and say, what he does, he picks up on verse 5. He's talking about all these nations that the Babylonian Empire conquers, that they fight against and war with and defeat and put them in captivity, makes them slaves, all the people that they killed, all the people that nations they robbed from. It's these nations that in the end that will taunt against the Babylonians. They will taunt means mockery. It means ridicule. And so these same nations that were conquered by them, when they see the Babylonians conquered by the Persians, they will sit back and taunt them and tease them and ridicule them. So what he's saying is that it will be payback for them. And they will do it with scoffing and riddles for him. And they'll say these words here. Now, one thing I want to say again, I mentioned it before, this is written about the Chaldeans, which is another name for the Babylonians, but it's also written against any nation that rises to power based on evil ways. It's written to any unholy nation that fits the bill like this. So it's applicable to our time, just like it's applicable to the time of Habakkuk. He says, woe to him who heaps up what is not his own. When I hear that woe, I think of Mr. T. And when I hear the woe, it says, I think of pity the fool. Woe to the fool. Judgment is coming. Payback is coming. And so it says, pity the fool. Judgment is coming, who heaps up what is not his own. They conquered other nations. They destroyed other nations. They humiliated other nations. They killed people. They did all of these things. They took what was not theirs. And so therefore, God is saying, woe to them who takes what is not theirs. Who takes what is not theirs. And then he says, but for how long? How long will this be allowed to last? He says, and loads himself with pledges. See, what God is saying here is this. When the Babylonian Empire conquered nation after nation, people after people, they took some things that weren't theirs. Meaning that sometimes when they conquered it, they thought they had that gold, that silver, that land, that nation, that right to that territory. They thought they had it forever. They thought their empire would last forever. But in reality, what they took was just laid up for the next nation that would take them. So what they really got was really on loan to them. It really wasn't theirs. They were just holding it for the next nation, Persia, that would eventually conquer them. What that tells us is that what we have is not ours. It's really laid up for the next person. What we have, we're just stewards of it. It's just loaned to us. What money we have, what car we have, what land we have. And so it's going to go to somebody else. And so what God is saying here, he thinks that these pledges or these loans are his for him to keep. And he Pride, he's prideful about it. He loves what he has. And God says, you will not keep those things. Those are just loans to you. Those are pledges to you. 7 tells us a little bit more. Will not your debtors suddenly rise? The people that you took those from, will they not rise and come against you? And those who awake will not make you tremble? Those debtors that those nations that you thought were long gone, they will rise up against you, and they will, and those awake will make you tremble. Your day is coming. What you did to them is going to be done to you. You're going to reap what you sow. You're going to have in-kind punishment, because what you did to them, just as bad as you were to them, it's going to be just as bad or worse to you. It says, then you will be spoiled for them. Just like you took spoil from your nations that you conquered, you will in turn be spoiled to another nation or nations. So God is saying that you're going to reap what you sow. There's going to be a payback. And we have to understand that too. When we wrong people, when we do something wrong, we think we're sinning against that person, or we think that we can somehow connect our sin to the devil. No, but when we sin or when we do things that are evil, we are offending God, a holy God, and therefore God has to do something. And we fall into trouble when we think that it's been a long time, we're getting away with it. God's not going to do anything. He's either going to do something now or he's going to do something on Judgment Day. But we will not, the unjust will not get away with it. And so he's saying that the Babylonians or any evil nation that does these type of things will not get away with it, because we have a Syrian nation. They did the same. They did some evil things. God raised up the Babylonian nation to deal with them. And God's going to rise up Persia to deal with the Babylonian nation. See how God does it? He's going to get somebody more wicked than you to deal with you. He says, I'm going to do this because you have plundered many nations. You have destroyed them. You have conquered them. You have taken them. You have robbed them. You have taken their resources. All the remnant of the people shall plunder you, meaning that it may not be the exact nation coming against you, but there will be remnants of these nations in which you have taken advantage of, which you have oppressed, which you have murdered, which you have done evil things to. They will come back, remnants, and they will do it to you. For the bloodshed of man and the violence of earth, you killed many people. You committed violent acts. You came into cities and you harmed the people that were there. You did wrong. And you had no regard. You were prideful. You were boastful. You did it without any sympathy, without any mercy. You did it to puff yourselves up. So what has been done, what you have done to them will now be done to you. This is God's justice. Then number 9 is another woe. This is the second woe of 5 woes. In our passage today, we covered 3 woes, but there are 5 woes. Pity the fool. Judgment's coming. Said, woe to him who gets evil gain for his house. That's what the Babylonian nation was guilty of. They rose to power not through the grace of God, but through evil means. Not by doing right, but by doing evil on purpose, intentionally. And then what you did was, woe to you, because you set his nest on high. You built this big empire and you put it on a mountaintop, and you thought you were like a bald eagle, where you were so high up there that nobody could touch you. You put your pride or your arrogance in the things that you had, your wealth, your gold, your silver, your military. You thought you were smarter than everybody else. You overestimated yourself and you underestimated God. You put your security in what you had and what you conquered and what you can do. But as children of God, God's holy people, we know that only security is found in God. We got this virus going around that's disrupting the financial markets terribly. And a lot of us have put our security in what we have, money and things. And we have seen our money in our 401ks, in our mutual funds, in our stocks just go to pot, drop by 25, 50%. And we have to be careful not to put our trust in what we have. That's a sign of arrogance. Our security is only found in the Lord. How do we handle when our money goes bad or the market goes down? The righteous shall live by faith. When there's confusion and fear going on, the Christian, the holy person, is level-headed, focused. He never takes his eye off of God. The righteous shall live by faith. My faith is in a God, the maker of heaven and earth, the ruler and controller of everything. Nothing happens without God's permission. Nothing happens without God allowing it. God knew this was going to happen, and God is in control. And if you're a child of God, guess what? No matter what this market does, no matter what happens, God is going to take care of you. If you're a child of God, he will take care of you. So what we got here is that they set their nest on high to be safe from the reach of harm. They thought they were invincible. They thought nothing can happen to them. But no one is invincible. No man is invincible. It's always something better. It's always someone lurking around to take you down. And that's going to be Persia. And it doesn't last as long as you think. Their empire probably lasted 70, 80 years. And that was it. Not a long time. It says, you have devised shame for your house. You thought that you were building something respectful, admired, and you thought something that people would clamor to and be in awe in. But no, in the eyes of God, what you built was shameful because you built it, this house, on evil ways, the bloodshed, the violence, the oppression of other people. And that cannot bring God's glory. Instead of bringing God's glory, it brings you shame. It doesn't give you what you think you have, this admiration, this going down in history. No, you'll go down in history as a shameful nation, one who was unholy and one who God raised up another country to take you down. See, sometimes we get so prideful and arrogant like the Babylonians. See, another thing, Babylonian, that means worldliness, that means flesh. And we just think we don't need God. And God's holy people know that God's the only one that they can depend on. The righteous shall live by faith. That's how you get through difficult times. When the world around you is in chaos, when there's nothing but immorality around you, the righteous shall live by faith. He says, you have devised shame for your house by cutting off many people. You have killed, you have murdered countless people. People have done nothing to you, innocent people, just to get what you want, just to have that house on the hill, that empire. And because of that, you have forfeited your life. You took an innocent life. Now that life will be taken from you. You conquered these nations, killed many. Now many of you will be killed and conquered. He says, for the stone will cry out from the wall, and the beam from the woodwork will respond. The things that you use to build your empire, stones and woodwork and brick, they are my witnesses to your evil doing. They cry out to the evil that they saw. And what he's saying is that the whole world saw all of the evil, even to the point, figuratively, the stones that you used to build what you built, the houses, the palaces, all of the walls around the city, they are my witnesses to your evil doing. Wow. It's amazing. Then we have 12, the verse 12, the third woe in our lesson for the day. Woe, pity the fool, Mr. T would say. Pity the fool. Judgment is coming to those who builds a town with bloodshed and founds a city on iniquity. Not only did you build it with bloodshed, but you build it on immoral practices, idolatry, prostitution, evil ways. Pity the nation, any nation. That's a warning to the United States. That's a warning to nations in this world. If you build it on bloodshed, if you build this nation on iniquity, judgment is coming your way. Woe to you. Thank God for this nation, we have remnants of God-fearing people, remnants of holy people who are standing up for Jesus, people who are witnessing. Thank God we have those people here. 13, behold, is it not from the Lord of hosts that peoples labor merely for fire? You're doing all of this work. You're doing all of this building. It's all in vain because part of my judgment is going to come and your empire will be burnt down. A fire will come down and destroy you. You labor hard. You work hard. But in the end, you will be consumed by fire. That will be your judgment. Look what it says. And nations weary themselves for nothing. You work tirelessly. You work your tails off. And it will be for nothing because your judgment, I will destroy all of what you worked for. You will be put to shame. You will be mocked by the other nations. You will be mocked by remnants looking on. You will be taunted by them, teased by them, ridiculed by them, because it will be all for nothing. They will rejoice in your downfall. For the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the glory of God. And when I enact my judgment, when God enacts his judgment, the whole world will see it, and they will know who the God of the Israelites are. And they will give glory to him because justice has been enacted. For the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. It will go all over the world. God will get the glory that he deserves. He gets the glory because God is a just God. God cannot allow justice to go unpunished. Even though we may think he does not. God knows exactly what's going on. He's omniscient. He's omnipresent. He's unchanging. And when we get justice, God gets the glory. When there's justice, the whole world knows who God is. And that's what's going to happen here. So what does Habakkuk do in the midst of all of this going on? He goes about his business. What do? When the world, in this chaos that we're in today, we go about our business because the righteous shall live by faith. We witness. We go to church. We go to Bible study. We live a moral life. We live an upright life. We live a holy life because there are people there to be saved. We are here to save people. We don't get fearful and caught up and weep like the unbelievers do. We walk by faith because, one, we know who God is, and we know God has a better future for us no matter what happens here. So I want to encourage everybody. Don't get caught. Don't be concerned, but put your trust in the Lord. Be concerned, take precautions, but walk by faith, because ultimately it is God who is in control. I hope this lesson has been a blessing to you. Remember to hit the like button, the share button, and the subscribe button. I enjoyed this lesson tremendously. It gives us hope. God is active in our lives. He is not silent. God has a special place for us. in the midst of things going on, for those who can remain faithful. Let God do what he does best, and let us be obedient to what God has called us to do, and that is to be faithful at all times. May God bless you, and I'll see you next week.